Station 3. Let's talk about product. What differentiating of product did you notice?
We're at the bottom, but we looked at your handouts and lots of choice boards, tic-tac-toe. May have been 15 or 16 problems students had to select 10. We also had the opportunity to look at an assessment that you did that same questions on each assessment, but one assessment may have had some hints on there or some multiple choice options versus constructive.
Okay, so some students may need a little extra support, and that's where that scaffolding, you'll hear that very often whenever you're talking about differentiation. Scaffolding comes in, and it's just like when you're building a house. You start out with the scaffolding, and as you complete it, you take it down. So you start out building those students up. As they get to the point where they can stand by themselves, you take the scaffolding down. And so I had actually created a test that my students are taking today while I'm out, that one of the is the exact same questions on both tests, but one of them was similar figures. And so I had, for the regular test, was a triangle that was pointed one direction, and then a triangle that was pointed another direction, and they had to match their corresponding parts. Well, not everyone can use their mind's eye to turn that, and it's sometimes complicated for those non-visual learners to see that. And so for those students, I actually left a list for my sub. These students get version A, these students get version B. And so she's able to pass those out based on my seating chart. So, you know, even outside of the classroom, I'm able to differentiate for a sub. And it's not something that's too in-depth, too complicated. I use the same questions. I just made a few changes, offered some multiple choice, offered some hints where I knew they would need those hints. Something very easy. It took me, once I had the original test done, it took me maybe 10, 15 minutes to recreate the second version. Okay? So it's not like you're going to spend a lot of time creating these ideas and coming up with these new things. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes?
You create the different tests, but you grade them the same.
Well, it's the same question.
What got ahead?
So if you can't remember the mnemonic for converting metrics, but I can. Okay? So I give you the test that has the hint on there of, and I use kangaroos hopping down Broadway drinking chocolate milk. Most of you may have heard the morbid one, King Henry died drinking chocolate milk. I just changed it to kangaroos hopping. So, you know, if the question asks, list the prefixes of the metric system. You can remember the little kangaroos hopping. I can't. So on my test, I see that. Am I really doing anything different? You're able to recall it, but I can't. So I offer that extra help. So.
Mm-hmm. She needs the hint. He needs to know if we mastered the standard. If she can demonstrate that she understands conversion of metric units with that hint, and she needs that, then give it to her. Because as a teacher, I need to know she's got it. That's
right.
Really all I'm worried about.
But when it comes to the
right. And in the CRCT for us. Right. So as you get closer to that state-mandated test, you kind of want to pull that scaffolding away and see if they can stand on their own. Yeah. So, you know, in the beginning, offer it. And even if you want to like offer it for a quiz, but not the test, that's still scaffolding. You're still building up to that moment and then pulling it back whenever it's ready.
I guess I just thought I built up to the test, and then I pulled the scaffolding away.
Right. And even from unit to unit, sometimes, even from unit to unit, see, like our units flow. I'm still teaching prime factorization. I'm still teaching least common denominator. I'm still teaching greatest common factor as I'm moving into proportions. I'm moving into similar figures. I'm having to go back and build that scaffolding for some of those students that I have on RTI that still are struggling because they are not getting it. And you know, if they don't get it the first time, and you go back and do it a different way a second time, because the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. So you want to, if they don't get it the first time with this way, try something different. Do it this way. And I'm going for my master's degree right now, and I told in one of my discussion posts, collaboration is a big key for differentiation. It is so hard to differentiate whenever you don't have someone to bounce ideas off of, and you don't have anyone that can help you come up with fresh new ideas each day. Yes?
I didn't really understand differentiation that much, or I guess the point of it is, like you were saying, I always worried that when it got to be CRCT time, that the kids that you help would still need the help, but they couldn't have it. And so I worried about, how you do that without giving them too much of a crutch. We got a new superintendent and assistant superintendent this year, and when she was giving her, this is me speak, she said in there something that kind of hit home to me, and it was that she noticed at school systems where she worked that if she had a high schooler who did really bad in one area, if she looked back, they did bad in middle school and elementary school, and how if when they started early, if they were differentiated with and met where they were and given the tools they needed to really learn how to get better at that skill, then when they got to high school, it wouldn't be that way. And so when in my elementary school, when I hear teachers say, if I do this for him, yada yada, then that's just kind of what I think about, that they, we're helping them later on down the road. We're not just teaching elementary kids, we're teaching lifelong learners.
Right. You're teaching those lifelong learning skills. And it's so hard, and I see it in 6th grade every day. Students will learn something in their science class, like the metric system, and when we come into math, I've never seen that before. I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Oh, really? Because Miss Antonuccio across the hall just told me, "Hey, you just learned metric systems last week, and now we're learning it in my math class." And so they don't. The younger you are, you don't take one and apply it to the other. It's very concrete and very separated. And so you need to take that and blend it in. And so I like that example. If they start differentiating at that young age, the scaffolding can come down as they go through middle school and into high school. Okay? All right, so was there anything else for product?
You just made some general statements on looking at a bunch of different resources. Students are expected to solve similar types of problems at varying levels of difficulty, and you have these 3 different levels of difficulty in content, concepts, or content reasoning.
And I actually pulled a lot of those straight from my textbook resource book. And they already had the ABC tier in there. I think it was one of you guys had ratio and rates. The ratio and rates were very easy. 1/2, 3/6, something like that. And then for the second level, it was a little bit more complicated, like 3/8 and 6/16. I had to think there for a second. And then the more complicated one, the challenging level, had decimals in with their fractions and their ratios. And honestly, I have students that if I gave them that practice A, they would finish it in 5 minutes and go to sleep or become a behavior problem. So I take that and I give them the practice C. Is it fair? Your question, is that fair to give them more difficult problems? Well, I know some of my students, like myself when I was in middle school, I loved the challenge of math. That's why I became a math teacher. I loved having that challenge. But then I know, like my sisters hated math, and they did not want the extra challenge. So can they master the concept of similar ratios? Yes. Is it more fun for me to do the more challenging? Yes. So is it fair? Choice is up to you. You decide.